Have you ever wanted to join a coding bootcamp but didn't know what you were going to be learning, what the curriculum was, what kind of projects you'd be doing? Well, I just completed one and I'm going to show you. What's up, people? Prodigal programmer here. Welcome back to my channel if you're returning, and if you're new, stay for a while. In this series, I'm going to show you all of the projects, well, most of the projects that I learned in my coding bootcamp that I undertook last year in December and finished in March this year. Some of them are super easy, like the one I'm going to show today, and some of them are pretty difficult. I might not even be able to explain them in the video that I do, so stay tuned for those ones. Okay, so funny story about this project actually. This was a prerequisite to get onto the course. They told us to get accepted onto the program, we needed to complete this, right? So this kind of shows you what bootcamps are looking for as a minimum requirement for you to know before you start your first day. Now, this is also when I realized that this free bootcamp was actually a bit of a joke thing. On the day that we all enrolled and got to speak to the instructor, you know, he's there in front of 160, 70 people. And he's like, okay guys, so we're gonna start with day one. Who finished the pre-work? The stuff that you needed to do to get on the course. And there's people like, oh yeah, that thing that I got that email about. Yeah, I didn't finish it. Yeah, didn't finish it. Yeah, I looked at it and I went on GitHub. I couldn't find the repository, so I just gave up. There was a project? Huh. At least half of the people were like this. And I just thought to myself, great, absolute wasters. Get them off the course, skim this course to be like, what, 75 people, 80 people, and we could just continue. But actually, they kept them all on. Every single one of them. Come on up. That's when I knew this bootcamp wasn't serious. We had a portal on our bootcamp that basically walked you through the whole thing. But it was good because if you were a beginner and didn't know anything about code, then at least you'd be able to build this, feel a bit more emboldened to continue the project, know that it's not the hardest thing in the world, and yeah, kind of be in high spirits for the bootcamp. Now, me, of course, you know, being an expert in programming, I had to flex on them a bit because I thought to myself, this is my chance to impress. I can build something that, you know, is not too far from what they wanted you to do, but at the same time, put a little extra zhuzh in it, you know, and made them see that, yeah, this guy's serious. This guy wants to pass. This guy wants to be top of the top class. So I'll tell you the things that I actually altered on this project, so you can see the difference between my project and maybe a lot of others who didn't do anything. Okay, so let's take you through what the project actually was. Right, here we go. So I have my page open here via live server. In a previous video, I showed you how to install that. So any changes that you make on VS Code automatically refresh as soon as you come out of VS Code's, you know, console. It just refreshes anything that you're doing. I've got my VS Code open, so you can see all the information here. And I'm going to take you through this. Let's start. So let's go through this. We've got the pre-work study guide as a title, a little picture, a little prompt, say open the console to see what's happening, and then we've got a whole bunch of cards that are showing us information on what we'll be learning basically in the first portion of the bootcamp, and then at the end I can code, which is cute. So let's go through sections first. So I will open a console, just right click and inspect on any part of the page. And you can see that this is in 3 different sections in the body. This is in 3 different sections in the body. We've got the header, which is highlighted now, then the main, and that's all of this. And then we've got the footer. Okay, so title, pre-work study guide, that shows up over here on the HTML file. So again, it's not on the page, it's part of the file, but it's outside of the HTML page. And straight away we've got an image right under there. So that's this image here. And one cool thing, I got an extension that shows the image preview of any images that you link into your code. So that extension is image preview. You can see there, and you can see there. So that's really helpful when you have loads of images on your HTML file and you want to link them all, but you can't remember what you've called what. Really helps. And then we've got the alternative tag, which is in case the image doesn't show up. Then we've got this text explaining what the image is. Profile image of a cat wearing a bow tie. Funny. Then we've got the subheading H2. Open the console to see what's happening. So we've done that. I should close the head now and open the body. We've got these 3 sections. I think I already said that. Right, so header opened up, and this is all part of the header. That's now done. Okay, so let's go straight to the main now, and we've got 5 sections: HTML, CSS, command line interface, Git, and JavaScript. Those are the 5 sections, and they're all cards here. They all have a class of card, which is why they all look the same. So the special magical thing that I changed in my code was that when you hover over these cards, it actually highlights in a way. You can see that it turns white on the background and the others are grey. So it kind of highlights what you're hovering over, and also the scale changes. You can see that the cards come out at you when you hover over them, which I thought was pretty cool. I've got a subheading or a title for the card, HTML, and then an unordered list, which are all of these bullet points. If I wanted a numbered list, I would use OL instead of UL. And then I've got a bunch of list items inside the unordered list that gives you all of the information. And the same for the other sections. Nothing is different except the ID and then the information in the LIs. So pretty simple there. And then last section, we have the footer, which is super simple. Just a paragraph tag with icon code inside it. And where is that? Here. Then at the bottom, you've got the JS file that's being linked to the HTML file. Then at the bottom, you can see here the body is finished with the closing tag there, and the HTML file is now finished. There should be nothing after that HTML tag closes, which is why it's ended. Right, let's move on to the CSS. First of all, what I like to do is go into CSS and target everything, which that's what the asterisk is for, targeting everything on the HTML file. I don't want anything to have a margin, and I don't want anything to have any padding either. That just makes sure that nothing is sticking out, there's not any weird things happening. I encourage you to do that in most of your files, but you need to know what you're doing, obviously. So what we've got here is header and footer sharing the same selector. We don't have to create 2 different selectors for the same things happening. The width being 100%, which means that this blue section goes across 100% of the screen, and the height to be 120. So just like you see up here, 120 pixels is the same as the footer, 120 pixels. Background color blue, nice and simple, and the color that you're writing is white. Okay, next we have the H1 and H2 being text aligned to center. So as you can see, everything that is in H1 and H2s, they're all centered all throughout the website. With this image selector, we've only got one image on the website, and we have a display of block, which means that no other elements can share its space. Let me show you and inspect that. So up here in header, if I hover over image, you can see that it takes up all of that space. So you can't have any writing in between it or beside it, any other images beside it. It just shares its own space and it continues. And it's the same with H1 and H2. They by default have a display value of block. So again, you can't write anything in between, before it or after it. It's just that. We have a height of 50 pixels and a width of 50 pixels, so that's a square. And then we have a margin left and a margin right of auto, which puts the image in the middle of the screen. If I was to delete one of these, so I'll just comment this out and then look at the page, you can see that the image is moved over to the left hand side. There's no margin at the left that pushes it to the right hand side. All we have is a margin right, which is doing all the work, pushing it to the left. So when I bring that back now, both margins are working against each other. The left margin is pushing it to the right margin is pushing it to the left. Next, we have the UL selector, unordered list. Pretty simple, padding left, 40 pixels, font size 20 pixels, so all of that information is exactly the same. Paragraph text is centered, and this is the only paragraph text on the whole file. Right, now into the nitty gritty, we have the cards. And on the cards, we have a width of 80%. So as you can see, it doesn't put a whole 100. If I was to change that to 100, they would span the whole screen, which is very ugly. So let's put that back to 80. Okay, next we have a margin of 40 pixels, which is in between the cards. So even when you scale it, you can see that they don't bump into each other. It's very tasteful, very tasteful. We've got the border, 5 pixels, solid and blue. You can see that all around the cards. There's a background color of da da da, otherwise known as light gray, and you can see that on the background of the cards, and also a position of relative. The scale is 1, which is what we want. We want scale to be normal and not be changing when it's just not being hovered over. We want it to just stay normal. And then we have a transition property, which means that any kind of effects that take change after maybe the card class has been clicked on or the card class has been hovered over, it takes half a second, 500 milliseconds to complete. So for example, we have the card hover class here, and it has properties of background color being white. So when you hover over it, it changes to white, and the scale of the card changes to 1.05. Very minute, but trust me, that's how you want it. Because if I was to change it now to 1.25 and then hover over it, yeah, it's a bit wild. That is a bit wild. And then the body here, we've got a background color of beige, beige, beige. And then if we move over to the footer, simply icon code. Okay, this is the part you've all been waiting for. Get ready. I have another section for the JavaScript. So if I open up that now, we've got a few variables, a few functions, a few loops. And this was the bonus part of the pre-work that we had to do. And I guess this is what separated the boys from the men. So you can see here, we've got something running on line 24 of the script file. And if we go to line 24, we can see there's just a console log saying, here are the topics we learned through pre-work. So that's just a simple console log, shows up, nothing else to it. The reason why I have this here is to present the list of topics below it. So as you can see, there's something that's running on line 6 that makes all of these items appear on the console. And if we go here now, you can see on line 6 there's a loop to bring this list into existence. Let's quickly go through how I created this list. So I have an array of topics, and there are 4 topics in total. And then we've got another variable which is random topic, and this is basically just giving me the topics that I want randomized. Here you can see that I've floored the math for this random generator to work. If I was to type ceiling, it would be a random number between 1 and 4, because I'm looking for the highest number it can be. So instead of the number being 0.62147, if I just give it a method of floor, that makes that number 0. Or if I put ceiling, it makes that number 1. It just cuts out all the faff in between, all those random integers. We've got this function which is called list topics. This is a function declaration. Read more about that on MDN. And there's just a simple loop. I want I, in this case, and stands for index, to be 0. I want I to be lower than the topic's length, which would be lower than 4. And I want I to grow by 1 every time the loop gets iterated over. So simple console log topics with the I in the brackets, in the square brackets. And what that's doing is giving me each item in the list and sharing it to the console, because I've called it down here. So we have topics I, which first iteration is 0, and that's why we have HTML at the beginning. Loop it over again, adds a number, goes from 0 to 1, CSS, goes from 1 to 2, Git, goes from 2 to 3, JavaScript. So instead of topics I, really what it's saying is topic 0, loop, topics 1, loop, topics 2, loop, topics 3. Then we have another function, which is select topic. And what it states here is an if-else statement, where I'm saying if the random topic, so variable here, equals HTML, then console log let's study HTML. And as you can see here, it says let's study JavaScript, which means that it found this one. And that reminds me, actually, with random topic, this isn't actually 1, 0, 4 and whatever. This is still a number between 0 and 3, but because I've put topics at the beginning with the square brackets, it's looking for one of these items instead of just a number. For example, if I was to delete topics, the square bracket, console log that now, and say random topic, refresh, you can see that that's just a 1. Refresh it again, 1, 0. If I now put topics with the square brackets on again, now you can see that it gives you the actual item in the topics array. So that's what it's looking for. And that's why it's able to sync with this function. If random topic, which is this, is equal, if it's spelled exactly the same way to Git, CSS or HTML, then console log whatever. And else, if random topic seems to be some next thing, it says please try again. But that's never going to happen, because I've asked this random topic variable to only give me a number between 0 and 1. If I change this to ceiling now, which is actually seal, I've been calling it ceiling this whole time, I just meant seal. If we change that, there's a chance that it will actually turn into a 4, which is not what we want here. There is no 4 in the items. There's 0, 1, 2 and 3. So if we refresh it until there's a 4, we get undefined. It shouldn't actually give us an undefined. It should be giving us a please try again. So that's weird. Undefined. I have to look at that later. Anyway, that's all I have to show you for this website. It's pretty simple, nothing too complicated. And yeah, if you found any value in this video, please subscribe, like the video. I'm trying to build a community here. I want to really stay consistent and show some real value to YouTube. So if you actually did enjoy this, please allow this video to be shared multiple times by subscribing, by clicking like, getting the traction to be higher on this video. That would really help me and really help this channel grow. So I appreciate it.